Today, Coach Dave McDonough, we traveled out to New Jersey. We have a very outstanding guest here in the boxing world.
The punching power of Gerry Cooney.
Gerry Cooney
Ray
is
Leonard, I
holding
sit that down with Tuttobene right here. This is two uppercuts with forward with combinations of left.
Mr. Gerry Cooney, we want to thank you, welcome you, and I appreciate you spending time here on Coach's Corner. And, boxing, you started, and at a time, boxing was at its height.
Yeah.
And, what can we say? You have so much history in the sport. And when we were talking on the phone, and, the history needs to be told today. Mm-hmm. I think the younger generation doesn't realize how you started, what you went through in your career at the mainstay of the sport. But I really appreciate you spending time with us today and talking to us about it. And, we're going to kind of jump right into it. And, we talked on a little bit on the phone, and you told me about how you started with your dad and how he got you going. What was the lure to boxing for you, though? I mean, you grew up in New York guy, Long Island. How did you gravitate towards boxing? Was it through your dad, or was it something that you found on your own?
That's a great question. And, I grew up in an Irish Catholic family.
Yeah.
My father was a steel construction worker, drank a lot. And so there was always boxing gloves in the house. And my oldest brother, Tom, my father used to bring us out in the back to punch each other around. And then my brother at 15 and a half left the house because he couldn't take it anymore.
Right.
In fact, I just spoke to him today. I talked about the day that my father brought all the boys in the garage and closed the door behind us and said, "Who moved my belt?" Nobody moved his belt, but he had to find out who moved the belt. And so Tommy left the house at 15. A couple of years later, he wound up in the YMCA. It was a boxing gym, and I loved my brother, and I followed him there. I was 15 and a half. I was 6'4", 160 pounds. I couldn't, I was a big, tall string bean, but when I hit you, you were going to go.
I mean, you talk about your hitting, and we'll get to that, and you could, you're put down in boxing history as one of the hardest punchers, one of the top 100 hardest punchers in boxing history.
Yeah. Well, I'm really grateful for that commentary and those people.
Yeah.
But you know what? I really regret some things I did. But that being said, I have a great life. I touch people my whole life. I love people, and I like to leave people smiling when they go. And I think that the people took to that, and I had a great following.
You had New York swagger. Do you think that's what it was growing up, and just the way we kind of, people, you understand the East Coast, how people are, the dynamic of family, family life, Irish Catholic, how you were brought up, tight-knit, beliefs close to the family and everything else. But you end up following this way. When was it that you decided, hey, as an amateur, I want to try this? Because at 6'4", I'm sure football coaches and basketball coaches were looking at you and saying, hey, we need this guy on a team.
Well, I wrestled, and then when boxing came along, my father told me one day when he picked me up, he said, listen, either wrestling or boxing, we're not doing both of this. And so obviously something about boxing healed my anger. Like, I was so angry with where I came from that when the bell rang, it was my life or your life, and I had to get you. And, I took care of myself. When I was 16, I remember having 7 fights, 5 knockouts to win the middleweight championship. And I had talked to the Herman Sporting Goods store and said, they said to me, if you win the Golden Gloves, we're going to give you a new heavy bag. The next morning, after the gloves, I was on the back page of the news. I went to Herman's and got my heavy bag, and it fed me. I went to school. They announced me over the microphones in the morning and the afternoon. So in my home, I used to hide out. But in the world, boxing gave me a voice. It gave me a picture. It gave me something that fed me. And my oldest brother was also a fighter, took with it, and both of us made it to the finals.
You both
And-
competed in the gloves.
Yeah, at the same
as
year.
brothers, yeah.
And what happened to my brother was he was a great fighter. He fought some guy from, the Dominican Republic or someplace who had a lot of experience. But he came to New York and signed, no one knew him, signed up as a sub-novice. And my brother wasn't as experienced as him.
Yeah.
And he lost the fight. And I prayed that night, please, if one of us has to lose, let it be me. That's how much I love my brother. And we went and he lost. He didn't stick with it. He's doing great. He's got a beautiful family.
Yeah.
Life is good. He took his road of struggle, cleaned it up, and now he's got 2 beautiful girls and a beautiful wife. And I just spoke with him today, and we figure it out, especially as Irish people. It's confusing feelings.
The dynamic, at any level, the dynamic growing up in those times, you're right. We're not in the world where we are today, where everybody expresses your feelings. You were told by your parents, you looked up to your parents, this is what you're gonna do, this is how you're gonna do it. You didn't question, your brother and your siblings. That's the path that you went to. But, you end up in Huntington Boxing Club, and with John Capobianco.
Yeah, great guy.
And I know Gerry, his sons, and have been blessed to be around them and work with them. What was the dynamic when it became like, okay, I'm going to train, I want to take this to another level? How was that for you? From going from the backyard, the garage, of doing it?
Well, it was obviously it was the next stage for me, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to be around my brother. It was 2 or 3 nights a week, so I could go and watch him, how powerful he was and what he did, and try and emulate him. But when I went to the gym, everybody was a right-handed fighter, so I just started fighting right-handed.
Yeah, but you're a southpaw naturally. A lot of people
my
don't
left hand
realize
is my
that.
power.
Yeah.
Larry Holmes told me about 6 months ago. He never knew it, and so every time I jabbed, it was like hitting you with the right hand. And so I had some problems with the caps. I love them.
Yeah.
Listen, they love their kids, and I used to not fight back sometimes because the old man would get mad. And then one time, one of the other trainers, Otto Juvenelli, said, "Gerry, forget that. Fight back. You got to fight back." I started fighting back, and that's when I left that gym, and I went to Queens to work with Vic Zimmett, and that's when I came on the United States boxing team. Had a great experience over Europe. I had 4 fights. 4 knockouts. I remember hitting this guy, Terry Chart, I can't forget his name, with the best left hook I ever threw, and he just looked at me. And so round ended, the next round that came out, I went to the body, knocked him out in the body. So I learned all those things from my brother, and I guess it was a gift that was given to me at the time. And I got to express my anger. They put my picture in the paper. I remember being on the back page of the Daily News almost every
Big deal
week.
back then. So you go back like
Back then, anytime.
even now, right? But the newspaper, the social media is taking over. As fighters, fighting in New York City, Golden Gloves.
It was big.
It was best, and still is to me, the best amateur tournament. If you got to the semis of the Golden Gloves, not only the finals, that was an accomplishment because you had to fight your ass off.
Yeah.
You're fighting kids from the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, Long Island. You're fighting the best of the best.
I had to fight 6 fights to get to the finals.
To get to the finals.
And it
Your
was,
first title was at middledweight.
I won the middleweight
And
championship.
now you got to make weight 7 times.
I had to lose 7, 8 pounds the night before the fight. And I didn't know at the time. I had to sweat it out. I made the weight. We went to Ted's Steakhouse. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
To have a steak, because we thought that's what you're supposed to have. That's the worst thing you can have. And I went into the finals. I was an underdog, and I knocked the guy out. And I won the middleweight championship, and I felt so bad for my brother. And I love my brother. We have a great relationship today. And
But boxing was your path at this point.
that's all I had.
Boxing is your
Gave me a voice. It gave me people looked at me. People made me feel important, and that fed me. And because I didn't get that at home, I got control. This, that. That's not good enough. You're not good enough. And unfortunately, boxing took me away from that, and gave me a place to grow and to learn and to change. and to also be able to help my family out in that process too, because it's a nightmare when you're just so confused that what's love? What is it? And slowly but surely we learned all that.
But going back to boxing and this, what people don't realize is the time spent in the gym. As an amateur, they see professionals but you're in there almost every night. You're with your coach, who as a fighter, fighters to be successful believe in their team, and that coach has got to believe in them. And that coach is just not a coach. He's more psychologist, a father. He's going to kick you in the ass and hug you some days, but he knows how you tick to make you a really good fighter, right? And you've been around great coaches, and you've been around the game, the greats. Any coach, any fighter is going to tell you that, he's got to rely on his coach.
Capianco was a tough guy.
Yeah.
He was a rough, get in there, the bell rings. He ain't going to look for no distance. He wants to get close to you. But that's what I had in me too. I was filled with rage.
You were a fighter, and a lot of people said you went at people.
Yeah, that's my only choice. And I got that from him. I got that from his kids. His kids are good teachers now. Philip, Gerry, they're doing a great job with Joe Smith Jr. And that's exciting time for them. And but there's a time where you got to turn the page, right? Just like when your career ends, you got to turn that page. We don't want to, because we always miss the roar of the crowd. The roar of the crowd. I'll tell you the story. So you're in your dressing room, and the door, someone knocks on the door, they open the door up, it's the commission. Cooney, you're next. First thing you say is, oh shit. And then you walk down this empty hallway, it's deathly silent, and you're quiet, you're thinking, the door opens up and you hear the roar of the crowd, and that's when you become magical. I'm getting chills as I tell you. You become magical, you figure it all out, what you gotta do. And that was my experience for most times. Only times, a couple times I got caught up drinking, Irish in me, didn't want to feel, was angry, was lost.
But that's, and that, we'll talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah, sure.
A fighter goes through many different levels of his life. And to be a successful fighter, right, it's those lessons in life that you learn, right? The wanting to fight coming out of you is because of, part your trainer, because that's their style of teaching you, but that's not something that, if it's not in you, a trainer could teach you, hey, Gerry, we want you to fight inside. But if it's not in your heart, and that's not how it is, you're not a fighter. We can't put the dog in you. Right. You had the dog in you.
I love that question. And so I want to tell you this, that boxing filled the hole, the emptiness I had here. Girls filled that hole I had here.
Yeah.
Training.
But through boxing.
All these different things. Boxing fed me. But after a while, it wasn't this. You wasn't the best guy fights the next best guy. It was a heavyweight division was stocked with all fighters that Don King owned, and I wouldn't sign with him. I didn't get in. So I thought to myself, well, I needed 6 or 7 more fights to be prepared, right? But had I got those 6 or 7 fights, maybe I would be struggling today. So maybe my God looked out for me and protected me in some way. So yeah, it's you use travel, sex, spending, eating, fighting as a way to cover up the pain, to not feel, and it works. And after a while,
momentarily,
right? Then it doesn't work. Then you got to deal with it
because the emotion, right? So what were your camps? 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 8 weeks?
Yeah, we used to have like 4 or 5 different, stable mates.
You're getting ready to fight. Yeah. It's a minimum of 10 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks, right? So you're going balls to the wall. Everything is on the line, right? You're living it, you're eating it, you're not around your family, you're not around your friends, you're not with your girl. Right? Tunnel vision is on the fight. Man, not a fight happens. After the fight, it's like the air comes out of the balloon. Yeah. And it happens, I know it as a trainer because, look, for 8 weeks to get a fighter, I've had fighters live with me because that's the only way I can train you.
Protect them, yeah.
But I need to know what the hell's going on with you.
Right? So I used to have, for me, I would go to the gym in the training camp, wherever we'd go near where we're fighting, whether it be upstate or California or Oregon. We went to a lot of places. And we'd have 4 or 5 sparring partners. And while I was in there with one of them, the other 4 were watching me, how to find my flaws.
Yeah.
So I had to keep staying ahead of those guys, and I had power, so I worked the body. I equalized it all the time, and that's a great gift too. That you can at any time you realize, okay, I gotta reach inside. I gotta slow this guy down, and nothing like a rib shot or hitting him with a left hook on the chin.
Is one thing of being a big puncher and a power puncher and being there. Guys that can punch. You felt them, and guys that can't. Power is something we can't teach.
Right.
You got to either have it or not. And you know what? The one great thing about fighting, and I say to people, is this: what is the one punch at the darkest moment in a fight that you're going to throw? So if you're a power puncher, you already know the answer. And 1 second left in a fight.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but there's other thing I can say. We can also learn to sit down on those punches and get a little bit closer and punch with the body, and you become a better puncher. But if you just born with it like I was, I saw my brother one night hit a guy with a right hand to the body and a left hook to the chin in a bar. The guy picked a fight with him and knocked the guy out. I said, we got to get out of here. That's when I realized what I got to do. I gotta take that ground away from you. I have to change your expression in your face, in your eyes, and put fear in there, and then I'm doing good. And that's one thing I got to do most of the time. Well.
You engaged.
Yeah.
You engaged.
We're Irish, bro. Come on, we're Irish. Bro. Ow!
You engaged.
Take it easy, bro.
You engaged. But back to this, you win the gloves at 160. You come back and you win it at a heavyweight.
Yeah, I lose in the finals of the light heavyweight division.
Yeah.
I beat the third-ranked light heavyweight champ.
But looking back, would you say you fighting at 160 was you getting your feet wet in the tournament? Then you went up to open class, right? Then you go to light heavy, but you're a true heavyweight.
Well, as it turned out, I fought heavyweight division in the Golden Gloves in 1976 as 196 pounds. I was skinny. Right. I wound up putting on 25 pounds after that, but it was a slow progress. And so I beat the third-ranked light heavyweight champ in the United States, Eddie Davis, and I lost to his brother Johnny in the finals. So it's kind of like a letdown. Who knows what it was, but it was a great experience. And I was disappointed, and I wound up next year moving into the heavyweight division, and that was a very exciting time for me. It was in the
height of heavyweight boxing.
It was the Olympic year. It was the Olympic year. I want to tell you a story. So I am on the United States team. We go to Europe. I have 4 fights, 4 knockouts. I come back. The president of the Olympic Committee calls me, says, Gerry, we have an all-heavyweight Russian card coming to town. How would you like to fight? I said, I would love to. But it was early summer. So 6 days before the fight, I'm drinking beers all summer long. They tell me the fight's in the garden. Do I want to fight? I said, well, sure.
Of course, right? Yeah.
So I 6 days, I'm running, I'm drinking Perrier juice and having Brussels sprouts. I get to the garden. It's my arena. So I got all the fans from where I grew up in. And this guy was 6'6". He was like 400 fights. Yeah. And the bell rings, and I always liked when the bell rang, I wanted to touch you with what I got. Let you know, you come in my house. If you come in my house, I got this for you. I knocked him out. Thank God, because I had to go into the second round. He probably would have killed me, that guy. Anyway, I get the phone call the next day from the president of the Olympic Committee that I made it to the finals of the Olympic trials, but I had no confidence, no self-esteem. I didn't go. And that's a regret I have.
And one of the greatest Olympic teams that we ever had.
It was a great time. And the experiences I could have had from that. But when I was young, I left the house when I was 17, so I've been on my own all along. I didn't really believe. I mean, when your parents telling you no good, my father no good, you no good.
You don't have anybody guiding you on that path to say, you know what?
And even my coach, he didn't want me. He was mad because I was banging his kids around. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I had no way. I had to leave, and then. And then I went to Queens and started boxing with Vito Antuofermo, the great middleweight champ, all those guys. And I went in and won the heavyweight title. And then that was Olympic year, and I went around to this group and that group and this group about signing, because my father had died at that particular point. Had nobody, not that I even had then. And I met these 2 real estate guys who had Howard Davis. Now the reason why I signed with them was because I figured I could be showcased with Howard Davis. That was true.
So you had Michael Rappaport.
Dennis Rappaport.
Dennis Rappaport.
Michael
Also,
Jones.
Right, Michael Jones.
And I regret that. I
And they
regret
had
it.
great fighters.
I regret it.
You regret
because
signing with them?
I do, because I see Top Rank, Bob Arum. They move their guys so sweet. They got the best of every matchmaker, every kind of trainer. They have the best fighters in their camp. So you're going to grow. That's what we need. We need to have those kinds of people to help us to grow correctly and put us in the right fights, and build myself up. I could have beat Holmes. I think when I knocked out Norton in 1981, I think that night I was great shape. I was no drinking, no nothing. I think I probably could have beat Holmes that night if we fought, but it didn't turn out that way.
But look, you fought some great fighters at a great time. You knock out Norton in the first round. I mean, Norton was a big bomber at the time, broke Ali's jaw in '76 in Yankee Stadium, and here you come and you drop his ass. And Ken Norton, right, and I think maybe you'll test this, right? Ken Norton was a physical specimen that boxers weren't those days.
Yeah.
He was almost like a bodybuilder. He was chiseled coming into the ring, and
Styles, Styles, and he wanted to come to me. Big mistake. You can't come to me that way. He figured he was going to use his experience. I hit him with a body shot. He buckled, and I spun him into the corner. And he was sleeping on me. He was sleeping. He was sleeping, and he was stuck on the rope. He was snoring.
Yeah.
And the referee was letting it keep going. You know what I mean? I tell that story about I was in Palm Springs training for the Holmes fight, and they brought this guy, a Marine. He was 189 and 1 or something, and he had 150 people that were going to manage him. First day, my trainer said, "Not today." He wanted to watch the guy. The third day, he says, "Okay, get dressed." And the guy gets dressed. He's a big, tough guy. And I hit him with a left hook. He was sleeping with his ass up in the air, snoring. He was snoring. Yeah. And that's what we do. So, I wish I had somebody that could have guided me a little bit more. But
your career, okay, let's talk about this for a second on the guidance. And from where you are then to where boxing is today, what do you see the difference in what you're talking about? Because today, if you come out Gerry Cooney today, the 18, 19-year-old prospect, it's got to be...
Well, I would have been bigger, because people are just naturally getting to be 250, 240, 260.
Well, our technology's a lot better, right?
Well, I think it's the milk, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The guys are just way bigger. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I'm getting to your body. If I'm fighting Tyson Fury, I will break a rib on that side. I will get to the body and get them hands to come down. That's what we do. That's what you're supposed to do.
Does that go back to the sense because you started at a smaller division at 160, and that's the kind of style that you see in that division?
No, I think it was back then, the amateur fights, punching to the body, you didn't really score points.
No.
So I saw my brother hit the guy with a left hook to the body, put him out cold and on the chin. That's how I became it. And I was just gifted with it. And I think that God kind of looked after me, and I fought, had a lot of fights, a lot of good fights. And listen, I wanted to win. I wanted to.
Well, your determination.
I wanted to fight that anger in me, and boxing did that for me.
So you don't fight for 13 months after you beat Norton.
Yeah.
They hold you out because. Was it the holdout?
Oh, I went to court. I was, there was a lot of nonsense going on. And,
obviously Don King.
I tore my rotator cuff for a little while, but then obviously King kept me out because he didn't want me to get the experience. You know what? I have a great friend in Larry Holmes. Him and I are great friends. He was a truly, on my Sirius XM radio show, Mondays and Fridays from 3 to 5 on channel 156. I'm just saying.
Yeah, tune in.
We broke down the heavyweight division, and Larry Holmes is second to Ali and Lennox Lewis. Those Ali number 1, Lennox Lewis, and Larry Holmes number 2. That's how great he was.
But okay, boxing people know Larry Holmes was Ali's sparring partner.
Frazier's sparring
partner.
Yeah,
but mainly Ali was where his recognition comes. And look, for many years, and we were talking about this on the ride down, I said, Larry Holmes had one of the best jabs, if not the best jab in boxing. He was I don't want to say overlooked, but people didn't realize what he was till he came on the scene. The boxing people knew what he was because, you know, being in camp with Ali, being in camp with Frazier, you know, all these greats, you know, you fought Ronnie Lyle. You know the pedigree of the boxing heavyweight division in those days, and you're in the mix. So
I want to just say something to your question. So yeah, Larry Holmes was so patient. From working with Ali, from working with Frazier, he was patient. He waited to tire you out. He waited to set you up right. He just had this unbelievable, he was a magic man in that ring at that time, and I was so blessed to get a chance to be with him in there.
But you did, okay, the fight, a lot of people had you winning that fight.
Nah, you know what, it was 120 degrees there. You know, I have a lot of excuses, but he was a great champion.
A lot of the writers and a lot of the stuff that I read on the fight and rewatched the fight had you ahead on the scorecards.
Yeah, so here's my story.
What are your thoughts there?
So it was 13 months, we didn't fight, we fight. I am trying to go the distance. I'm not going out being Gerry Cooney.
Fight. You're fighting a 15-round fight.
But I'm not going out fighting like I fought Norton, because now I'm fighting the heavyweight champ.
Right.
Inexperience held me back.
Your personality, and we go back to the New York, I call it New York swagger, right? You were, I'm going to use the word, because I watched your career as, you know, from the outside, now obviously sitting across the table from you. You were a New York icon. You were heavily involved in the sport. And you also looked to give back to the sport, which fighters weren't doing at the time. Your charities, Fist, you started organizations, unions that you wanted to advocate for fighters. You were on the cover of Time magazine with Sylvester Stallone. I mean, you know, we grew up, Time magazine. If you were on the cover of Time magazine, you walk by every newsstand, everybody.
It's a funny story because...
You know, how did that come about?
Well, Neil Leifer, Stallone was coming out with a Rocky, so he wanted to get with Cooney. So he told Neil Leifer to have Cooney fly out. He was in Europe somewhere. Neil Leifer said, Cooney ain't leaving his training camp. We have to go there. So they came up to the Catskills, and I had my mother come up and my brothers. Who gets an opportunity, right? We had a nice photo shoot. He was standing on a milk crate about 6 inches in front of me. And great guy, great man, did a lot for so many people. In fact, I just saw a picture of him today. We're all getting up there. Yeah. And so yeah, I had a lot of blessings like that with people. Frank Sinatra, I was on the Bob Hope special, all those guys that, you know, that I got to rub elbows with. And, you know, and so...
But that's the blessing of boxing that takes us around relationships and people in the sport. And going back to your story as a youth, like, nobody envisions this, right? Nobody sees the process that Gerry went through from, you know, what's going on in my life, why I'm a boxer, you know, my struggles as an amateur, my struggles as a pro, you know, my inner insecurities as a fighter that, you know, they see this man, you amassed a great record. You're 28-3.
Yeah, so here's the story. So the sanitation workers in Huntington, Long Island, the recreation workers in Huntington, Long Island, those were fans of mine. That's who I loved. That's where my head was at. I'm fighting for the people. I'm fighting for those people that struggle. You know, in life...
But you're coming at it.
In life, you work 2 jobs, and you come home, and you watch your fighter fight. When you do that, it helps you be a little stronger. And that's the I felt that was. I felt like I was... we were the same people wherever I traveled. I related to that kind of people, to that, you know, and I love that about myself, that I was just no different than anybody else. I was just getting these opportunities, and I was running with them.
Yeah, of course. After the Holmes fight, you know, you get a shot at Foreman, you fight Spinks. Was it, after fighting Holmes, was your
the fight
feeling? Yeah. But you know what? You know, we'll go to Foreman. You know, you gave it to him in the first round. Like, you let it hang out there in the first round with him.
You know, I'm going to tell you something, right? So in April of 1988, I put down the drink. And so him and I fought in January of 90. So I was just waking up from not drinking, from getting my life back on track. So I really wasn't prepared yet for it. And I was promoting some of his fights, and he was knocking guys all the time. He said to me, "Look, why don't we fight?" So I said, "Oh, that sounds pretty good. You know, I've never done this sober," and I put it down. We signed to fight, and Clancy was great.
Yeah.
He wanted me to box and move for 6, 7, 8 rounds, and then open up. But I heard him. I heard from him with a body shot and a hook on the chin. And you know, when you're a puncher, you want to go for it. But my timing wasn't right, and I got caught. But it's all good. It's all good. You know that story. I see that smile on your face. Yeah, man, I got this. Let me go. Mistake.
Let's tap on a little thing right here. And you just said it, you know.
Michael Spinks didn't really belong in the ring with me. On any healthy day,
You out.
It took me 2.5 years to start.
For what he did, he went up in the division, you know.
It took 2.5 years for me to get that fight, and I was on, it was off, it was on, it was off.
Because he don't want to fight you. You're out of his division height-wise and everything and weight-wise. He don't want to fight you, right? But you're in New York, and you touched on something, right? You touched on, you know, you're drinking. Is it New York and that you caught a little lightning in a bottle, fame-wise? You're out there and you're just being Gerry out there from Huntington, Long Island. I'm just an average guy out there. And now, you know, people recognize you. People are asking you to do shoots, be involved with the sport, maybe train people, whatever the case may be.
So
and you're moving and grooving. And you still have your career. How are you navigating through that, thinking that I got to go back in the ring?
First of all, I learned not to trust anybody.
Yeah.
So that was a hard thing, in the main reason. Hard to you. I was scary. I was scared. Look what I'm becoming. I'm told, you know, good, this and that, and all of a sudden, I'm getting a shot at Larry Holmes. And so, I think my father drank ridiculous. I never wanted to be like him. And I did. I ended up there. And then finally, in April of '88, I just said, you know, it's no good. I got to get my life back on track again. Actually, I had a little baby born, Christopher. He's like 36 right now. And I thought to myself, I never want to be like it was in my house. And I put it down, and I started to get my life back on track, and it's been great. I'm a grandpa. I hate to say I look very young, but I am a grandpa.
Who do you think was one of your greatest influences?
I love Muhammad Ali. Until he made fun of Frazier, calling him a gorilla and Uncle Tom and all that stuff. He was just a guy, you know, he was, I told him one time I met him at a UN function, and I said, you had a great time with him. I said, Mom, you got to come out to my home. I just bought a home in the Hamptons. He said, all right, I will. And I had to cancel. I was like overwhelmed with what am I going to do with 30 people? But I had a lot of great experiences and a lot of things, you know, I was too scared to deal with. And but I learned from my faults and my mistakes and clean this up and clean that up and, you know, and get back on track. And so I got, I'm doing good.
And you're a great advocate of the sport.
I love
okay?
boxing.
You're a fighter's guy because you know what it takes and you know the ones that make money and don't have money and made money and lost money and everything else. You know, I want to touch on one thing that, you know, Don King, and you talk about, you know, wanted to deem you the Great White Hope. And that was something that you were not very happy with as far as you didn't want to be deemed that.
No, but you know what? Holmes was mad at me. I was mad at him, but it had nothing to do.
That's the fight.
Well, yeah,
right?
but it wasn't about racism.
Right.
He felt threatened by me, and I was threatened by him.
But Don King's a promoter.
And Don King was doing it to make money, right? Mm-hmm. That's how that came about.
Yes.
But so it did make a mess. You know, we were getting things in the mail from different organizations. But the best part about that whole experience was when Holmes and I got in the ring. I was so mad, I couldn't wait to hit him. He said to me, when the referee was giving us instructions, he said, Gerry, let's have a good fight. I was like, what'd you say that for? I want, and,
Yeah,
and
that takes the little like,
sting away.
I'm ready to kick your ass, and you tell me to. But you know what? I never met Larry
He's a great
Holmes. He's
champion.
a great champion, class act, speaks very well. I mean, you know, look, icon in the sport. So I kind of have an idea of maybe what this answer is going to be. What's the best decision you ever made? Whether it's career or personal. I don't know, maybe I'm a little
No, I think it's
trying
great.
to be a little into
There's so many of them.
you know?
I have such, I have a great life today that I worked hard for. You know, I got a great wife. I stayed alone for a couple of years and worked on myself. And then I met my wife. A buddy of mine got a job in an accounting firm in the same office as her. He called me one day, put me on the phone with her, and 3 months later I came from wherever it was, Florida or California, and we went to lunch, and we've been together for 30 years.
That's awesome.
Also, becoming the fighter, learning what I learned, to be able to communicate to troubled kids. I help troubled kids out, to try and clean up their act, and to follow a dream, you know, find out what you want in life and then go for it. I tell the kids today that are struggling with nothing, go to the post office, sort mail for a summer. Let them get to know you. You get health insurance, retirement plan, vacation time. We have to have a plan. There's no plan anymore. And that's part of my, you know, we have a responsibility to help the less fortunate people. And that's always been my way. I've been doing charity work 3-4 days a week for 100 years because it's our responsibility. And I love it. I mean,
And you know what, boxing's a great community. And we give back. There's a lot of people behind the scenes giving back in this sport, whether it's their time, mentoring, coaching, training, whatever it is. You know, a boxing gym, you could have kids from the street, criminals, lawyers, CPAs,
Right.
wealthy people standing next to you. It doesn't matter, right? It's a diverse place, right?
well, let me just tell you something. There are plenty of boxers in that way too. But hopefully they'll listen to somebody and change it around. You know, listen, you know, life is not waiting for us, right? It's not waiting for me to change. It's not waiting for me to be available to my wife or to my next opportunity. I have to fight for it. You know, there's an old saying I know is that guy's in the boat with God, and God is steering, and the guy is rowing. And God is steering, and the guy's rowing. The guy gets tired. He says, "Say, God, can I steer?" And God says, "Yes, my son, you can, but I don't row. So I have to do work.
Yeah.
I got to put the work in, the effort in. I got to feel the pain. I got to cry about it. I got to get upset. I got to figure it out, and then I can help the next person, which also helps me grow a little bit more. So it's a whole deep.
But this comes back to fighting. This is finding yourself, whether you become a professional, whether you're a fighting amateur,
You're all right.
you're training. This is fighting.
Yeah,
Because
you're right.
look, right? You talk to the coach, you talk to everybody else. Gerry, you're great. You do this, blah, blah, blah. When you walk in that ring, it's you.
Yeah.
Coach ain't rowing for you. Coach giving you instructions, but you got to figure it out.
Yeah, well, I tell that story, but you walk out of the dressing room, down that hall, and the doors open up, and magic happens. Like, you got to figure it out. And then you listen to your corner who can make some adjustments for you. There's not enough of that going on. You know, and amateur boxing, you don't make no money banging to the body. Pros, we have to learn to get downstairs, go upstairs, step off to the right, get away from the right hand, answer, hold on.
Do you think, and I'm going to touch on that, do you think the fundamentals of boxing that are being taught today are changing because of there's got to be an aesthetic with social media and the look that these fighters want to look better? Because, look, I come out of the same generation as you. I was not a very good fighter by no means. But I knew one thing. I'm going to get close to you, and I'm going to bang the shit out of you one way or another. And that's the way the old school trainers get in, touch the body, bang, bang, bang,
Come
move.
down.
And then the head's going to fall, right?
Yeah, so that's a great, what you're telling me, but, you know, like, you know, this is what I have to do. You're 100% right. And I got to cut this down. I have to get the information. I got to create a plan. And then by doing that plan, I can back the guy up, make him fight backwards. Once he starts to fight backwards, he can't get off anymore. He's not as powerful, and you got to get inside. So yeah, I mean, there's so much involved. What you was talking about is that the fight game has suffered over the last 20 years because all the great trainers, Eddie Futches, Victor Val, all those guys, Gil Clancy, all those guys have passed. And so boxing is getting the watered down version.
The torch is not being transferred. And this is a conversation, and I'm glad you brought this up because we're out of the same generation. Mm-hmm. And I told you my family is the Archer brothers. We spoke about that, right? The torch of everything else, the real trainers, right? The real trainers, look, I carried a bucket before anybody did anything. Anybody even talked to me. Right. You know what I mean? You had to go through your rite of passage. Sure. I didn't walk up in the ring and hold pass. Hey, Gerry, come on over here. Who the hell are you? You had to go through your internship. So if you're working with Eddie Futch, if you're working with Manny Stewart, Freddie Roach, right? Yeah, you had to,
put your time in.
You had to put your time in.
You have to learn the trade.
You had to learn the trade.
You gotta listen.
Then you got to be trusted by a fighter that he can, he knows what he's talking about. I'd have a feeling with him. It's just not. So we're losing, I think, all of this with social media because anybody can go up on their phone and say, how do I throw a jab? How do I throw this? But that's not teaching boxing. Holding pads and showing choreography is not boxing.
Right, I agree. So, but listen, I want to tell you something. So also, from those years, you got soccer, you got football, you got all these different things that's taking people away.
And boxing
and plus, the bad rap that boxing got all those years took people away. So now we're coming back. We're rebuilding it up again, and it's going to take some time. But I agree with you. The skills that these guys are teaching. I'm not saying everybody. There are some good trainers out there.
Yes.
But the majority of the guys, they're teaching people to walk in with their chin. They're not teaching them to stay back and be safe. And by being safe, I'm more powerful. They're not doing that. And it's like they haven't put the time in. They haven't had those great people to teach them, but they're jumping in the business because you can get 10% or you can become a trainer.
Well, boxing's the only thing is, right, and you know this, you can't walk on the field and coach the Giants or say, you know what, I'm going to be a coach. But you go in a boxing gym, you can find coaches who aren't coaches, people who are managers who want to be involved in boxing, guys, got a little money. Hey, Gerry, I want to get involved in boxing. Let's go promote some fights. Let's go buy some fighters. Guy don't know shit about boxing or moving a fighter.
I tell people, when you want to take your kid to a gym, go to the gym, keep quiet. Watch the guy who's teaching defense. Watch the guy who's trying to get him to protect himself. That's the guy you want in the corner. Once you learn defense, you become defensively sound. Now, I'm not saying that I was completely defensively sound because I was like when I retired, 5 years into that retirement, I really got everything that Victor told me. In the moment, life was going so fast. Yeah. For athletes, for all athletes, it goes so fast that I couldn't hold on to it. And after I got out of the game, I understand exactly what he was saying, and that's what we have to pay attention to. You got to put your time in. You got to pay attention. You got to see the change, see the difference, find the openings, and then take the guy out.
And the other thing is, look, the fundamentals of boxing haven't changed.
No.
You throw a jab a certain way, your footwork, I see that we're getting away, not all trainers, because there are a lot of great trainers out there. We're getting away from the fundamentals of the sport.
99% of fighters I run into, I ask them to throw me a jab, they all go like this. See this? They're walking into the right hand. Yeah. Right? I'm here. I step right. Get away from the right hand answer. But they don't do it anymore because they're not taught.
But that's Victor.
They're all falling in. And after a while, you're going to get away with it for a while, but you're going to start getting caught, and then you're going to shy away from the game. That's what happens. Yeah. So anyway, that's the story about it. And boxing is great now. I can't wait for this fight.
What are your thoughts on some of the guys today?
No, listen,
who do you like?
David Benavidez against that Cuban sensation. What a fight that was.
Great fight.
Dmitry Bivol, Artur Beterbiev. I cannot wait to see who makes those adjustments. Can Artur Beterbiev at age 41 take the distance away? from Bivol. Can Bivol keep him outside? I think Arthur Beterbiev is such a big puncher. He hits you wherever he hits you. Lightweight, 125, 140. I mean, there's just so many great fighters out there, and I like it. And what happened to boxing is that we stopped showing CBS, NBC, ABC, CBS. We went to the Zone. We went to the networks, and people can't afford it. So the people that would have become fighters, the struggling people, the poorer people, they're not seeing the
we
game.
grew up on ABC. You had to watch Wide World of Sports to see fighting.
Yeah.
The tape delay of a pro fight, or the United States fighting Cuba or Russia. Those were big days.
I saw when I knocked out the Russian with my father who was dying. I went over the house last time I saw him. Yeah. Watched me knock out the Russian. So it's true, and we have to come back. We have to get back to basics. I think they should use bigger gloves in the gym because people are taking shots that you can't rebound from in time.
But okay, I have a theory on that. So a study came out on head injuries. Boxing is not the #1 sport for head injuries. Hockey is. Okay, this is by, they're talking about all the CTE, and what I think in this is that you have a young kid developing. Why are you fighting him and sparring him so much? I mean, we have kids, amateurs, that have 80, 90 fights by the time they're 16 years old. I don't believe in that. How many quality fights do you think you're going to have at 16 years old, 90 quality fights? How many quality fights are there going to be?
Well, I'm just saying, if I'm fighting and I got a guy teaching me I can fight 100 fights. But you think about CTE in soccer, women's soccer. You got it in football, terrible, terrible.
It's a main form.
Terrible. Yeah. Boxing, terrible. It's all through the sports. We need to watch out for ourselves. We need to protect ourselves a little more.
And I talked to you about this. I had Peter McNeely on the podcast. Peter was great, and unfortunately suffering from CTE, but he remembered everything about his career.
Yeah, that's great, but in today's time.
But he said to me, right? He says, listen, he goes, there was a time that I boxed for 2.5 years straight without stopping. That's a lot of time. And he played football growing up as a kid, right? So, at high school.
Wear and tear. Yeah. Wear and tear. Listen, when my knees went, I had to get my knees changed. Yeah. When my brain goes, I can't change my brain. No. So we have to be more defensively sound, protect the guys with better headgear, bigger gloves in training, and bring them into the ring. You're going to fight. But they're falling in, they're taking shots.
So you said about the headgear and the gloves. I'm going to touch on one thing. The equipment today is ridiculous compared to, some of those old Everglass gloves and headgear and cups that you guys started with in the early 70s, seeing the guys in the garden, man, the gear looked like, holy shit, what's your take on that today?
Well, obviously, they're trying to make better equipment, better, referees understanding of the fight game. These guys are taking shots, they're not responding well. Like I see, Katie Taylor, I see Amanda Serrano. I was in the garden when they fought the first time.
So we had Katie in our gym sparring a couple of times. She's phenomenal.
It was like Frazier and Ali. Yes. But they get worn out. We don't know how long women are going to be able to take that pounding. Right. Then they had the second fight. Same thing. Both fights could have been draws.
Great fights.
I think they should have been a draw. Now they're talking about a third time. We have to be careful. We have to talk to these kids and let them know what happens down the line. Where we don't remember. I was at a Hall of Fame. And one of the fighters that was getting inducted couldn't even talk. He had to have his wife induct him. Yeah. So that's a story that we have to stop.
And you're a big part of this for advocate for retired fighters.
I mean, listen, I love life. I love people. I'm always there for a great cause. I'm always there to make change. That's our responsibility. Yeah. It's not a choice. I don't do it 6 days a week anymore. But I still want to help the less fortunate.
Yeah.
understand whether you give them a 20 or, whatever you do on the street, you help the guy get a meal. Those kinds of things. You pray, I go to mass. I'm an altar server at this age. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So listen, we have this great opportunity. Boxing is great. I want to be involved in it. The problem is like fight game, it's like horses. They look good, they smell good, they're like, woo, look at this guy, but they can't run. Fight game is that way too. You put your heart into these guys and they fall apart. They don't want. I find that in today's time, unless you're really gifted with it, these guys, they want to make the money, but they don't want to put the work in.
But that's the social media, that's the whole form. They found an easier way. Your path, there was no social media. You talk about being on the picture of the daily news, which is a big thing.
16 years old on the back page.
You're coming home and everybody's buying the news. Hey, Jerry's on the paper. Look at here, right? You don't even have to call your neighbor up and say, I'm on the paper. They already know by the time you get home.
Well, I mean, I did take it to school too, bro.
Yeah, I don't believe
Look
you.
at this, it's me, bro.
But quick thing, you got a lot of great stories, and I'm sure we can really chop it up. A lot of crazy stuff happens in boxing, right? Behind the scenes and everything, and unexpected moments. You got something you could share with us of a little bit of a crazy,
I'm
unexpected?
always like this on-the-spot guy
Yeah.
that creates a story. Like, I'm going to tell you, so years ago we're in the Concord Hotel training camp, and Mr. Parker, they were great people, the Parker family. And one night Victor Valley comes in, and I'm a little stressed out. And I don't give it, I'm telling him, I don't care, I'm leaving. Victor's going, give me the phone. And then he's okay, guys, we'll have dinner, then we gotta go home. And then we tell him we're only kidding. Or we're downstairs after training, and there's an ice pool at the hotel, and so as he's walking by, I throw him in. Those moments are like magical.
I could see Victor's face got restless.
Oh, he don't mess around. And he would sing to me all the time. He's just beautiful. He's a beautiful man.
And Victor ended up sending me a fighter, a cruiserweight. He was having health issues at the time, and it was just like, what a great guy.
And his son, too.
Joey's,
Victor, Joey's father, was a great guy, too.
Yes,
He had a brain tumor and passed a couple of years ago.
So, those guys were just...
Rachel.
Yeah.
All the valleys.
Yeah, great, and it's great things. So, you got so much...
You know all the guys I know.
Yeah, listen, I've been around. I'm sure we probably crossed paths somewhere. Oh, man. Whoa. But, you got a lot of positive energy, a lot of stuff out there. What kind of advice would you give somebody today, whether we be boxing or career path or athletic?
Get the information. Hey, listen, when I first stopped drinking, I heard somebody say, "Can you help me?" And I've been asking that question ever since. If I want something, I have to do the work. I can't get away with, when I was a kid, I got from first base to home plate because the girl, they liked me, the teachers liked me, I told a good story, they felt bad for me. But in life, the real life is struggling to second base and struggling to third base and then coming home. And you don't have to do it alone. But most kids that come from that kind of background, they're afraid to ask. I tell them, get writing, write it out, talk to the staff, talk to the people, tell them what you need. It's the only way I'm going to get ahead, and we have to today. We're in a fight, not in the ring, we're in a fight for life. To get to the next place, to raise a family, to love your kids,
Great message.
So that's a story, but what was that story I told you before about the guys in the boat with God? And the guy was rowing, and he was rowing, the guy was steering that boat, and he was rowing, and he got tired. He said, "God, come on, God." And God said, "My son, I don't row." And the other one is like, the guy's walking down the beach with God, right? And he's, through some of the most difficult times in his life, there's only one set of footprints. He said, "God, during my most tumultuous times, you left me." He said, "No, my son, that was when I was carrying you." We have to get that. And that every day is a gift.
Yeah.
And I try and touch people every day. And I cannot wait. I'm going to tell you something right now. I cannot wait to touch that chicken parmesan right now.
Yo, listen, so we got...
Look at that girl over there.
Come on, Chef June.
Look at that. Hold on, sir. Come on, Chef. There we go over there. Come on, let's get that chicken parmesan up there, a little pasta.
So good to have you.
Great to see you. Great to see you.
How are you?
So you know something, right? Boxing brings a lot of people together for a lot of reasons, right? So we're all here together
all in
for
the
this.
fight for
But
life.
you know what? In the amount of time I know this woman, passionate, you know, the food, I got a feeling is going to be, but you know what? She's all in. And if she was a fighter, I'm going to go sit over here because I don't want to catch anything. But she's a pretty tough woman, great, passionate.
Nice.
You know, like a fighter, what she does here in the restaurant is passion.
Yeah.
And I think if you're passionate, you could be successful in whatever you do. We really appreciate you having us here in your home.
My pleasure.
And you know what? You're gonna have that Sunday dinner family kind of feeling that we grew up on and that we love. Got a little Pellegrino, yeah.
Oh, where's the pearly whites? That's what I'm
Do you
talking
remember
about.
Sunday gravy dinner? How it was?
I do. I go. I still got a friend of mine, Danny Tarantola, and his beautiful wife, Therese, invites me out for Sunday. They got sausage, they got pepper, they got everything.
Sauce, it's gravy. If it has meat
gravy
in it,
too?
it's gravy. Come on. The old
Yeah. Well, you know what? She's bringing it back.
Meat, potatoes.
So you know what? How
Hey,
about that? Maybe.
corned beef and carrots,
But you know
bro.
what? I'm half Italian, Jeff. I'm Jerry. But you know what? Why don't we do this? Right? We're definitely going to eat today. But why don't you bring your family as my guest here on a Sunday when she's open, and we're going to have a nice Sunday dinner
Let's do it.
with everybody.
Well, that sounds great to me.
How's that?
Yeah, sounds
All
It was
right.
nice to go out with this girl. She was half Irish, half Spanish. Every time we went out, she got drunk and tried to stab me. Love you guys, man. Thank you.
Hey, real quick. You're on Sirius Radio. Tell us what days so we can listen to you.
serious?
Right now, I'm a little serious.
XM, Mondays and Fridays from 3 to 5 with Randy Gordon at the fights. We talk about
commissioner.
everything
The
boxing.
commissioner, Randy
We get
Gordon.
movie stars on. We get
Awesome.
everybody comes on, and we tell you what's going on in the game.
Now, one other thing, big event coming up at the end of March for your friend Bobby Ches.
Yes.
You want to talk about that real quick?
Well, Bobby Ches is a great guy, regardless of, he struggled at the end. He was a great announcer. He's a great fighter. He fought everybody. And he had some setbacks in his life. And now he's struggling with a cancer that's fighting him.
So you and it's a star-studded cast of
Yeah.
ex-fighters.
Great
So
you got to show up.
we're going to show up on that.
We got to find the address and things for that. But Bobby Ches is a great dude.
Yes. So listen, we really, really appreciate you taking time
Excuse
out
me?
here.
Excuse me? Oh, excuse me. I heard it the first time. Thank you, brother, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Listen, it's Chef June, thank you. Yeah, we're gonna have some really good food right now, and Coach Dave McDonough from Coach's Corner podcast. Train hard, train smart, and we'll see you in the next round. Let's eat.